When the name General Sani Abacha is mentioned, it brings about mixed reactions among Nigerians.
Abacha came into power in November 1993.
Totalitarian regime where there was absolute disregard for human rights.
I think he's the most brutal head of state we've ever had.
Those that benefited immensely from the military dictator's regime will tend to support the effectiveness of his rule, and those who did not will look to tear it down. This is typical of any administration, but one thing all Nigerians seem to agree on when it comes to the over 4-year rule of Abacha is the word corruption, and the fact that Nigeria may never fully unearth the riches that were stolen from the country by the military dictator.
The government made some findings on some of the funds that were taken out of the country. Some of them were taken in physical cash from CBN. Some were in forms of bribes that were paid, or kickbacks on contracts that were awarded by the federal government.
General Sani Abacha is arguably the most infamous dictator in Nigeria's history, if not the entire Africa. The effect of his administration is still being felt in Nigeria to this day, because it is only in Nigeria that a former military dictator who died more than a decade ago is still the subject of rumors and investigations concerning his wealth. The wealth of General Abacha has become like a myth at this point, with no one being able to successfully pinpoint the exact amount that was looted from the country. Join me as we journey through the world of the dictator, how he came into office, the source of his rapid wealth, and of course his eventual mysterious death. The late Abacha, who was born on September 20th, 1943, is originally from the Kanuri ethnic group in Borno State, but was born and brought up in Kano State, and therefore adopted the Northern Commercial State as his own. He had his early education in Barewa College Zaria and Military School Jos, before proceeding to the Nigerian Defense Academy Kaduna as a member of the 18th Regular Course. After graduating from NDA, he was commissioned as Second Lieutenant into the Infantry Arm at the Royal Nigerian Army on the 13th of May 1976. According to people that knew him during his early military life, he was described as a ruthless and fearless combatant, even as a young cadet in the 1960s. Abacha seemed to have strategically positioned himself as he played a major role in almost every coup in Nigeria's history, starting with the 1966 counter-coup that ousted the military regime of General Aguiyi Ironsi when he was still a second lieutenant with the 3rd Battalion in Katsina State. The 1983 coup, which he played a major role in the overthrowing of the civilian government of Alhaji Shehu Shagari during his second term in office, which saw General Muhammadu Buhari take the reins of power. Abacha was the one who announced the power takeover. He was also involved in the coup of Buhari 2 years later that saw General Ibrahim Babangida take over, and he was rewarded handsomely with a Chief of Army Staff appointment and later becoming the Minister of Defense. All of these leadership roles seem to be prepping him for his eventual takeover from the interim Shonekan government that came into power after the 1993 presidential election annulment by General Babangida. The coup which he championed led to the dissolving of the state and national assemblies, which paved the way for Sani Abacha and his cohorts to loot effectively. According to a lot of Nigerians that lived through the rule of Abacha, they described it as one of the strictest military rules in the history of the country. Abacha initially entered the office with the promise of a smooth transition to democratic rule in no time, but all the actions taken in his administration was anything but democratic. He came down hard on the citizens and ruled with an iron fist, essentially making himself the one and only authority of power in the country. The human rights group African Rights claimed that there were more than 100 political deaths in detention or suspicious circumstances during his regime. It wasn't all terrible under Abacha though, because the country's foreign exchange saw an increase of over 10-folds, and the external debt of the country also lowered from $36 billion in 1993 to $27 billion in 1997. He also reduced the inflation rate left behind by Ernest Shonekan and was responsible for a lot of urban road construction in major states. Sani Abacha died on 8th June 1998. He was 54 years old at the time of his death. He died of a heart attack and was buried in his hometown in Kaduna State. It was reported that Abacha was ill before his death, but no proper explanation has been given by the government. It is not known what disease he had or how long he suffered from it, but it is believed that his illness might have contributed to his death. We may not be sure of the exact cause of death because no autopsy was carried out on his body, but it was after his death that the whole of Nigeria's attention was drawn to the greatest heist in Nigerian history. Abacha's government has come to be known as one of the most corrupt in the history of Nigeria as a nation, and the infamous embezzlement that went on has come to be known as the Abacha loot. Transparency International has estimated the amount looted by former Nigerian head of state to be between $1 to $5 billion, a figure that is simply insane. A list that was released in 2004 containing the 10 most self-enriching leaders in the past decade saw Abacha rank at number 4 on the list. There has been one military leader and 5 other presidents after the death of Abacha in 1998, and the issue of Abacha's hidden loot is still a topic with each administration seeming to unearth a new part of the wealth. Prior to the death of General Sani Abacha, his wealth had never been questioned, although it was said in hushed whispers as the law gave him absolute power to do as he saw fit to anyone who would question his rule.
It is in the overall national interest that these unpatriotic acts being perpetuated by the leadership of Nupeng and Pangasi be dealt with decisively.
Olusegun Obasanjo, after his death, began questioning the then National Security Advisor Ismail Agwarzo, who partook in the looting of national funds. It was noted that Olusegun Obasanjo recruited the help of a foreign Swiss lawyer by the name Mr. Enrico Monfrini to help in tracking the Abacha loot barely 5 months after the passing of the late general. The Abacha family succeeded in moving large sums of money out of the state into various bank accounts all across the world. They were essentially swimming in wealth before the death of Abacha made them retreat into their shell in the hopes of hiding what they had managed to accomplish. Reports even showed his wife Mariam was caught trying to flee the country immediately after the dictator's death with over 30 cash-stuffed suitcases. 2 of his sons have been directly linked to the looted funds, and there have been numerous accounts found in the names of other family members and business associates. The Abachas were essentially swimming in wealth at the time, even though right now majority of the stolen money has been recovered by the government, but it definitely wasn't easy to recover as they fought tooth and nail to keep the wealth. The looting of funds by Abacha was revealed after his death in 1998, and his accomplices in the act came under heavy scrutiny by the government of Olusegun Obasanjo. A 42-page document which was leaked in 2014 showed exactly how he acquired his wealth through various means. One of those means was the requesting of money for a vague security issue by his advisor, which the late general will then sign off on, and the request will be taken to the Central Bank of Nigeria for the cash to be disbursed. According to sources, the cash was moved by truckloads of dollars to Abacha's house, and this went on for more than 3 years. This was just one of the ways. Some of the other ways ranged from awarding of government contracts to his friends at very high rates and then keeping the rest for himself, and even the high charging of foreign businesses that came to do business in the country. Abacha stole more than $2 billion, pretending the money needed to be used for security reasons. Some of the people that are believed to have aided him in carrying out his acts are his late son Ibrahim Abacha, the second son Mohammed Abacha, who came under intense scrutiny by the Olusegun Obasanjo administration until over $1 billion of the looted funds were returned. Former National Security Advisor Ismail Agwarzo, his lawyer David Umoru, and the then Minister of Finance Chief Anthony Ani. There are over 40 foreign bank accounts that have been linked to the former head of state as well, with each of them spread across the world, predominantly in Switzerland, the US and the UK. After Abacha's death, the Swiss government froze some of his assets. The amount of money they found was so staggering that it earned a place in history as one of the biggest bank heists ever. $4 billion. In 2010, Nigeria's government put together an audit team to determine how much money had been looted by Abacha and his cronies, and if possible, find some way to return it to the people who were robbed. The audit report was published in 2012 with a shocking figure. According to its findings, Abacha stole $5 billion from Nigeria during his 6-year rule. Then came another round of audits later in 2014 by PricewaterhouseCoopers, which uncovered another $6 billion stolen by Abacha on top of what was previously discovered 4 years earlier, bringing the total amount embezzled up above $11 billion. In 2013, $729 million was traced to Abacha's family and friends. Of this amount, $403 million was traced to Mohamed Abacha. The money that was given to him was part of the loot Abacha stole from Nigeria. Mohamed used the money he got from his father's loot for investment in business ventures in Switzerland and other countries such as United Kingdom and France. He also used some of it to purchase land within Switzerland, where he built a house for himself worth over $100 million. In 2016, the Nigerian government traced 100 billion naira to the son of the former military ruler. The funds were traced from a bank account in Austria to Mohamed Abacha, who was living in Malaga, Spain at the time. He had told investigators that he received the money from his father. He said he did not know what happened to it and could not remember where it went after he deposited it into his account. According to the Transparency International, below are the details of recoveries of the Abacha loot made by several governments since his death in 1998. Under the General Abdulsalami Abubakar administration, who took over after the death of Sani Abacha, $750 million was recovered. Under the President Olusegun Obasanjo administration, $2 billion was recovered. Under the President Umaru Musa Yar'Adua administration, there was no recovery. Under the President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan administration, $277 million was recovered. Under the President Muhammadu Buhari administration, $630 million was recovered. The recovery process has been slow and quite tedious, and there have also been a lot of rumors that the recovered funds are being re-embezzled by other members of government.
Absolutely, the money has been looted. It's been looted in such a manner that you begin to wonder if Abacha himself was a saint, or if the politicians we have are the ones who are devils. You know, I mean, we grew up hearing statements like the worst civilian regime is better than the best military regime. But you then ask yourself, so if so much money was stashed out of the country for years and decades, and then we've had democracy since 1999, and we can't exactly say what we've done with the money, then it tells a lot about the quality of leadership available to Nigerians, the moral vacuity of our leaders.
Quite a shame. So there you have it. General Sani Abacha was very rich in spite of being a dictator for just 5 years. How did he manage to amass such wealth? Perhaps the answer lies with his wife, Mariam, who claims that he had been looting public funds from as far back as when he was a colonel. Exactly how rich the former head of state was is something that might remain a mystery forever. His wealth was never officially weighed or confirmed, but rumors were rampant when he died. One estimate put his holdings at $5 billion, others even more extreme. However, popular estimates placed the amount closer to $4.5 billion, including assets hidden around the world in various countries and even in offshore companies under anonymous names. The late General Sani Abacha is still one of the most corrupt leaders Nigeria has ever had.
Thank you for watching. I'm Isaac. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to the channel for more content coming up. See you in the next video. Bye for now.